Welcome to Monday's Mental Mistakes. This week we're looking at the self-serving bias. Here's a simple example. I'm about to show you 5 questions from an IQ test. For each, you'll have 10 seconds to determine which item completes the series, and then I'll give you the correct answer. Keep track of how many you got correct. Item 1. The correct answer was number 4. Item 2. The correct answer was number 5. Item 3. The correct answer was number 1. Item 4. The correct answer was number 7. Item 5. The correct answer was number 6. How did you go? Were your results mainly due to your intelligence or due to the difficulty of the questions? Here's another 5 questions. Item 6. The correct answer was number 4. Item 7. The correct answer was number 1. Item 8. The correct answer was number 6. Item 9. The correct answer was number 3. Item 10. The correct answer was number 5. How did you go this time? Were your results here mainly due to your intelligence or due to the difficulty of the questions? If you felt like you got the first set correct because of your intelligence, but struggled with the second set because of the time constraints, then congratulations, you suffer from a self-serving bias, like the rest of us. There are, of course, many reasons why you might have got some items correct and struggled with others. But to attribute your successes to your own intelligence and your failures to circumstances is an example of the self-serving bias. The self-serving bias is the tendency to perceive, remember, or interpret situations in a way that preserves our self-esteem. That is, we tend to see things in a way that is flattering. The self-serving bias makes us more likely to see successes as a result of our own hard work or talent. At the same time, we're unlikely to see our failures as due to laziness or a lack of ability. The principal way to counter the self-serving bias is to insist on a consistent evaluation of ourselves. So, if you tend to see yourself as the architect of your own successes, then you also need to accept your role in your failures. For example, it would be inconsistent to see the number of times that you didn't get a job as simply a result of bad luck, circumstance, or the interviewer's bias. And then to also believe that the time that you got the job was due to your presentation, hard work, and intelligence. The self-serving bias is not a single cognitive bias, but rather a motivation underlying several different biases. So when we experience biases in our perceptions, memory, or cognition, they tend to be biased in ways that are self-serving, rather than in ways that challenge our self-esteem. For example, our memories are notoriously unreliable, but although they are often inaccurate, they are rarely inaccurate in a way that makes us look worse. Instead, we misremember anecdotes in a way that makes them more interesting and make ourselves look better. The most common form of the self-serving bias is what is often called self-serving attribution bias. This is the bias in making attributions, or explaining the causes of behaviour. There is a complex process by which we make sense of the things that we and others do, and the outcomes of these actions. The self-serving bias means that we generally see our successes as caused by our own choices and actions, and our failures as caused by our circumstances and luck, as in the example earlier. As with other biases, there is a wide variation in how affected individuals are by self-serving bias. For example, individuals in non-Western cultures tend to experience it less and are more likely to see themselves as responsible for negative outcomes. Another group of people who are much less affected by the self-serving bias is those with depression. Depressed people actually tend to invert this bias and see themselves as responsible for their own failures, but not responsible for their successes. However, aside from the clinically depressed, the self-serving bias has been well established in a range of settings, from education to relationships to sport. It's important to note that the self-serving bias, as with most other biases, can be adaptive. People who see themselves as responsible for their own successes can find this motivating, and attributing failures to other factors can prevent us from becoming too discouraged. But as with all biases, being helpful doesn't make them true, and taking them too far can be harmful. In conclusion, the self-serving bias is the tendency to perceive, remember, and interpret situations in a way that enhances self-esteem. Until next week, may your mental mistakes be minor.